Take two. Because for some reason, I recorded 35 minutes prior. Went to my files to pull out the file for the video, and it's not there. Computer just didn't save it. It was like, nah, it's fine. You're good. I really wanted to be full of rage and smash this nice computer that I got, because that would be beneficial. Obviously, I didn't. We're here again. And I'm going to try and do this one more time. And I don't have a script, which all my videos are completely unscripted, so this isn't the first time this has happened to me. But this whole Epstein thing has really gotten me thinking about a lot of stuff. And it's gotten me thinking mostly about how easy it is for us to justify our actions. The Pam Bondi thing, that was really telling. And it was telling for multiple reasons. One, it made me think about this whole idea of the problem of evil. And I've had this thought before, thinking about how, if God is omnibenevolent, omnipresent, and omnipotent, why does he allow evil? The thing is that God's around us all the time. And proof of this is when Jesus sat with the sinners. Jesus is God. Divine and human. So he had all the same emotions we had, and yet he didn't sin. The Bible is one big lesson on self-control. Really self-control, radical self-control. That's what separates us from the animals, is self-control, self-awareness. You have to have these things to have any semblance of self-control. And here we are. We live in a world now that is just incredibly, it's about the self. We've entered into a selfish stage. Consider it our teenage years as humanity. Yes, a lot of people in the world are old, myself getting there. So it's kind of funny to say, well, our teenage years. Think about it. En masse, it's about the self. Teenagers, by and large, can't help it because they're learning and we're trying to figure this out. But that's when you would have the rebellion, big teenage backlash, where it's, that's not what I want. That's not me. That's not who I'm about. I am. That's God's name. I am that I am. It's not humorous. It's sad, but ironic, humorous, laughable, maybe. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it, because when you think about what we've done as a society, we're no better than any other civilization that came before us. We've made some we've had some great achievements, that's for sure. But the thing is that we as humanity, we keep finding ourselves in these situations, and we just keep saying, why is this happening? Why would God allow this? The real question is, with all the information that we have, with all the knowledge that we have, all the evidence, all this stuff that points to how we should run it, and we all know there's a way. We all know that there's a way that this should be done. We all know that there should be a way that people act. And yet, here we are. Because knowledge of God is written on all of our hearts. We all worship. We all go for worship. We all are worshiping something. All of us. If you suffer from gender dysphoria, you as the individual want to be a woman or a man. You know that that's not biologically possible, but you strive for it anyways. You know that it's not possible. You do. It's not a great place to be, I'll admit that. But you know it's not what you need to do. To the alcoholic, you know you're not going to find alcohol. Of course you're going to find alcohol here in America, but you're not going to find meaning at the bottom of a tin can, or an aluminum can, I should say. To the people to the OnlyFans, to the porn stars, or I shouldn't even say stars. You're not really stars. It's not. That's really not how we should be addressing you. But to the pornographers, if that's a word, pornographers. There we go. That's better. And OnlyFans models, and those who are just the playboys and playgirls who are just going around and just doing it for sport. You know you're not going to find meaning at the end of this. There's too much evidence to support the opposite. And you've been exposed to it. You know it. Like, in this age now, for sure, you know it. There's plenty of interviews out there of people who used to be a part of that business and say that it is terrible and it is not the way to go. But people still do it. To the people that take advantage of their students, you have plenty of evidence now to know that that's not a thing. That's not something you should do. But you do it anyways. Why is that? That's the real question. As someone who's fighting alcoholism, I've had that question multiple times. I've asked myself that question multiple times. And I'm still finding myself drinking. But why? Why am I doing it? Is it really just biological and it's just dopamine and it's just a habit that I'm chasing? Possibly. But why? If I have autonomy, which I believe we all have autonomy, why do I keep doing it to myself? What's the driving force? It's not thirst. I'm not thirsty. I could have water, I could have Monster. It's not just about thirst. It's about something deeper. And I think we're all starting to see that now. When you see things like the Epstein files, and you realize that these are people that have all the power, all the money, and you and I don't know who's listening. I don't know if you're trans, homosexual, hetero, Democrat, Republican, all these things. We've all seen people do things that was just inherently self-destructive. Even if you're in this position, let's say you're a trans person and you're going through, what you're going through. You're taking your puberty blockers. You're not feeling much better, but you look over to your left and you see a homeless man drinking himself to death. And you think to yourself, well, at least I'm not that guy. That homeless person might be looking at you and saying, at least I'm not that person. So we all have an idea that each of us is doing something amiss. But where does that come from? See, it's not the problem of evil. It's the question is, why do we keep doing it? And you know this because when Pam Bondi was asked questions that were relatively point blank, for instance, like, how many people are in this department? Instead of her saying, we closed that department because of X, Y, and Z, there were this many people the year prior. There are now no people because X, Y, and Z. Instead of saying that, she started pointing fingers. And that made me think of Adam and Eve. That made me think of multiple stories in the Bible where it was just finger pointing. And it's the same. It's the same, no matter how you spin it. The transgender person could say something like, well, no one gave me the love that I needed, and no one affirmed me, and so I took radical action to make them affirm me. To the drug addict and the alcoholic, I was hurt in some way. And so justifiably, I am now going to self-destruct. Even though I know what it will do will hurt me in the end. I'm not counting any of these moments. I'm not counting any of this beer. I'm not going to even consider the fact that what I'm doing may be wrong, because I, over here, was hurt in the past. It's no different. The pornographer, the OnlyFans, the Playboy, the Playgirl, that scenario I gave, I was hurt in the past. Therefore, I will continue said hurt by hurting others or hurting myself because I felt bad. I feel bad. And you see these pedophiles and you say, well, these guys are pure evil. Yeah, but it started over here. Somewhere back here, I felt a type of way. I know it's wrong, but I'm going to do it anyways. I was hurt in the past, somehow, some way. It doesn't matter how traumatizing. Doesn't matter if it was a rape or something like on the level of, oh my gosh, you poor soul, to something as minor as a girl rejected me in high school and I never forgot it. And now I'm going to get revenge. Or a boy. My daddy didn't give me enough attention. You know, the daddy's girl, daddy problems. We all know what that means. Daddy issues, you know. To the man, the mommy issues. He treats women like trash because his mom treated him like trash. The girl constantly wants attention and affection, and she gets it through sex because her daddy didn't love her enough. Or he did something more nefarious. But you're going to continue that chain of behavior because you were hurt, and in the moment it makes you feel like you have control again. Pam Bondi did something very similar. Back in the day, you guys didn't whatever question this guy, and so I'm not culpable of what's going on now because we did X. Well, that's back then, and sure, we could say that we dropped the ball there. Well, 100% we dropped the ball there. This shouldn't have gotten this far to begin with. But you're here now. You took on the responsibility. You said you were going to do something, and you did nothing. Well, correction, you did do something, but you deliberately disobeyed and covered up for people that you know you shouldn't have. It's a constant shifting of blame. And you start to realize that that's just how we're operating. And it just makes you think about how selfish people are and how far we really have fallen. And the thing is like, we've fallen before. Take, for instance, any ancient kingdom. The punishments were brutal. There was no sense of rehabilitation. And a lot of that was done and was considered a public spectacle. Now, some people, I'm sure, were numb enough to it that they just considered it like any sort of Sunday afternoon football game. Or for those across the pond, a Saturday afternoon football match. So there comes a point where you start to ask, why do we keep doing this? And the question doesn't necessarily revolve around why do other people do evil? The question is, how capable am I of getting to that point? And I wondered this because, some of the most notorious killers, dictators, I wonder when they were young if they had any inkling that what they would do would radically change the world. We had that serial killer era where it felt like everywhere you turned there was a serial killer. And truth be told, most of them were men. And what was going on in that time frame? During that time frame, men were still able to find jobs and have a relatively stable life. They were, women weren't necessarily as promiscuous, but it was getting there. Porn wasn't as widespread, but it was still there. And yet, here we are. It's like these people going out and doing all these crazy things. Now you don't hear about it. That doesn't mean they don't exist. But what's going on? Same with Hitler. I wonder, when Hitler was young, did he have any inkling that he would grow up someday to become Chancellor of Germany and then meticulously try to eradicate an entire race of people? Did he know that? Did Stalin know that? Did Mao Zedong know that? Did Pol Pot know that? And so when I think about people like Jeffrey Epstein, did he know when he was younger that this was going to be his future? I doubt it. It comes in moments. This moment right here that I'm in, I'm not thinking about if this blows up tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen in an hour. I could drop dead in an hour. But I don't know. And that's scary when you really stop and consider it. James Van Der Beek, Dawson's Creek. The WB, like one of those sappy teen sitcoms that I was never really a fan of. But because of him, I know who it is. I know who he is. Just died. 48 years old. And you see it. And the trans people, though I don't agree with it, it makes me sad. Because I see an addict. An addict's not the right word. I'll be clear about that. I don't think that they're addicted to the surgeries or whatnot. I think they're addicted to the attention. I think there's a lot of things in there that we just don't really fully understand. Consider the fact that this is considered one of the loneliest generations. We call it lonely, I call it lost. This will go down in history as the lost generation. The millennials. We've done nothing. And whether you blame whether you point the finger at whomever, it does ultimately fall on you. I'm a millennial, so on me too. There were plenty of times in my life that I knew I could have done something better. In the moment, I knew I could have done something better, but I chose not to. All of us have that moment. That's why you're seeing a lot of the detransitioners happen. Because at some point in time, they knew that what they were doing was a little radical. Think of the woman that gets the abortions. And then you get to a point where you're like, now I want to have kids. Well, if you're getting to the point now where you're like, you know what, maybe I do want to have kids. Somewhere along the line, I think that thought did cross your mind. But it's hard to admit that. Because then you would have to admit that you knew you were doing something wrong. I think that's why a lot of people struggle to tell the truth. Because it's hard to admit that you had done something wrong. Because it's much easier to blame, as evidenced by Adam and Eve. They knew, they were tricked, but they knew what the command was, but they were tricked. But instead of having faith and obedience to the one true God, they partook. And what's the first thing they did? Eve, the snake, did it. Adam, she gave it to me. It's hard. Life's hard. Life's complicated. And I think we're all just now starting to see that. I think people in the past knew that. Not as much as people way back then. They didn't have as many distractions. But we have become an incredibly distracted society, to the point where we don't even consider our own humanity like we should. We all know that evil exists. We all know. We've all seen it. We've all been victims of it at some point. Betrayal is an evil. Drinking uncontrollably and raging out on your spouse is an evil. I've done that. I'm ashamed to say it. I have blackout raged before. I was never physical, but to know that I was capable of being that. And the worst part is, I didn't necessarily stop either. They got less and less and less, but I still couldn't find myself stopping. Why? Because I was selfish. Because I wanted to feel better. It's the same with the trans person. It's the same with the homosexual. It's the same with the alcoholic and the drug addict. It's the same with the workaholic. It's the same with the person that just wants power. We all have various motivations that are not necessarily aligned with God. And the thing is that the minute you walk away and follow your own motivations, it says that in the proverb, don't be a fool and follow your own understanding. That's a paraphrase, a big paraphrase. But all these motivations don't necessarily line up with God. And yet we choose them anyways. Why? Selfish. I want. I need. I deserve. I'm entitled. If more people thought about others instead of themselves, and I mean not quid pro quo, I mean like, I'm going to give you 100 even if you don't give me 100 back. And I mean 100%. You could say that with anything. I'm going to give you a 4-course meal even if you never cook for me again. I'm going to pay for dinner even though I know you'll never pay me back. If we had that kind of kindness en masse, I think a lot of this stuff would stop. Because it's all about treating others how you would want to be treated. And that's where the selfishness comes in. Because I don't know anybody that wants to be on a receiving end of a drunken rage out tirade where you're just shouting and you are completely inconsolable. Nothing they say is going to work, even if it makes sense, because you're in a blackout drunken stupor. I don't think anybody would, if the shoe were on the other foot, would want their friend to go through a surgery that they know is not going to work, that they know is going to be full of complications, that they know that they're going to be essentially butchering themselves for the sake of feeling better in the moment. There is someone who I know is trans whom I've spoken to online. They're not happy. It's always talking about how they're lonely and that they want to just get, pleasure. But that's kind of hard to do when those things are removed. We need God back in this society. And it shows. I don't condemn anybody. As far as I'm concerned, the person who's trans, I'm no better than them. As far as I'm concerned, the workaholic who leaves their family and isn't a part of their lives just because they want to make a little extra money is no better than the homosexual. And as far as God's concerned, I think that rings true. He doesn't really care what your sin is. If you're not following his will, you are wrong. You are at odds with him. But it's his grace and mercy that change you. But it's hard to receive grace and mercy when you are unwilling to stop doing what it is that you know you're doing is wrong. This orange cat is trying to play comedic relief and deciding to scrub his face on the back of the laptop. But at least he has enough of the common courtesy to stay out of my shot. I'm waiting for it. He's going to do it, maybe. He's got those big orange eyes, and he's just like... Anywho, back on topic, because I got to go to work soon. And this is take 2. So, I would encourage you all to really stop and think about that. Myself included, I'm going to be doing a lot of prayer and a little bit of soul searching. But remember, it's not about you. Probably the better way to do this, what can you do for someone else and not expect something else in return? What's a nice thing that you could do? What's a way that you could give yourself to somebody for no reason and no repayment required? We all have a hard time doing that, and that's why life is hard in general, because the simple stuff like that, we can barely bring ourselves to. And I think that's how we can get down these radical paths. Is because if you can't even start small, or correction, if you're not willing to start small, you're not going to get to the heart of the matter. And that's really what this is all about. The Bible is one big self-control book. It's the only religious text that I'm aware of that has such a radical form of self-control. Jesus knew he was going to go on the cross. He didn't fight anybody. He didn't punch anybody. As they were whipping him, he didn't curse. He stayed quiet. And he died. He let the entire world mock him, ridicule him, abuse him. in unholy ways. And yet he died for us. That's the shining example. And when you look at that and then compare it to what we're seeing today, you're seeing people run away from that. Like in hordes, running away from it, because now it feels like it's every man for himself. And that's exactly what God did not want to happen. That's why we have the universal church. He wanted us all in communion. He wanted us all to go to Mass. And he wanted us all to give each other the sign of peace. He wanted us all to give more of ourselves to each other and give God the glory that is deserved. And not to worry about yourself. Because what God wanted us to do was, I want you guys to take care of each other. And while you guys do that, individually, each one of you, I will take care of you. And how easy is that? Well, God is everywhere. That's how easy it is. God is watching, and he's saying, look at you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for helping to feed my sheep. Let me give you a little something. Who cares if it's $1 million or whatever? If you know that at the end of the day, when you die and you're going to go to heaven, I don't care if the Lord gives me a penny and says, thank you for taking care of my sheep. Oh, trust me, it's totally fine. I assure you. And when you start to cultivate that relationship, you start to feel that love. And you start to understand really what God was trying to get at. And this Epstein thing, the 60 million abortions that we've had, the rampant abuse of children, the selfish nature that has permeated throughout the United States and is now starting to go to the world. If it hasn't already been there, it probably already has, but what do I know? I live here. I don't know what's going on in Canada. I barely know what's going on in Canada. I can't even tell you the capital of any place that's there. Same with the United Kingdom, same with Ireland, same with Israel, same with Afghanistan. I don't know any of these places. I don't care. They don't care about me. And that's fine, rightfully so. Worry about you in your area and let's pray for each other. But the thing is that look at what's happening. There are no kids at any playgrounds. There's no sign of life. There's no you walk in the park and you're hearing kids, tag, you're it. Ah. None of it. It's gone. You go down to the downtown. All the shops are closing up. Even in big urban areas, they're starting to close up shop. Mom and pop places are shutting down. Everywhere. Jeremy Clarkson just posted on Twitter not too long ago saying that loneliness is a problem in the rural areas because he's mentioning the same thing. There's no public doctor, there's no local doctor, there's no local dentist, there's no local vicar. I don't know what that means. There's nothing. Nothing is local. You have to go to another place to do it. And the more people do that, the more they get sucked in. And then they're like, well, I guess we might as well stay here. There's more fun things here. Instead of, hey, it's not about me. Let's go back to our local community and let's see what we can give them. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. JFK. And he couldn't have been more right. He couldn't have been more right because it's not up to the government to make you happy. It's up to you. And the thing is that it's not about the happiness. It's about serving God. If you don't serve God, you're going to fall. How do I know this? I have a plethora of examples in my life that I remember that I could have done something different and I chose not to. And you know what happened? It made it worse and it snowballed and I didn't notice it. I didn't notice it in my 20s. I didn't notice it in my mid-20s. I didn't notice it in my late 20s. I only started to see it in my early 30s, and that's when I got divorced. When my life came crashing down because I realized over that entire course of time, I was living for myself. I don't care what my spouse did. I don't care what my ex did. I don't care if she was in the wrong or right. I know I did something wrong. And so I share part of the blame of that. Praise God, it didn't get worse. Praise God. But I still got hurt. And because of that, I took that hurt. Now I don't blame her. Before I did. But for 2 or 3 years, I went ahead and went on a drug-infused tirade and just tried to recklessly destroy my life. And I did everything in my power to try and be happy, only to find out that it didn't matter. It was meaningless, all of it. Vanity of vanities. Until I looked in the mirror, realized that something was going wrong, went and hit rock bottom once more, cried out, saying, Lord, I am tired of feeling like I have to be drunk to talk to you. And then he took it from there. And now this is where I stand, and now this is what I see. And it's gotten to the point where it's like, I don't, Republican, Democrat, whatever. Everyone in this office, everyone in that office right now is complicit. They are now on the hook, as far as I'm concerned. Everybody there should be investigated. Everyone. I don't care. Thomas Massey, investigate him. I believe if someone was like, we're going to investigate you, he'd be like, all right, have at it. Give you everything I got. And there will be people in there too that are like that. They'll be like, okay, fine, come investigate me. The ones that are like, I don't really want you to. This is an invasion of privacy. Okay, we'll take a look at you a little later. But we'll be a little more thorough this time. And that's just because it's easy to try and justify. It's easy for humans to do it. We can't help it. We justify, we point, we blame, everything under the sun except looking at ourselves. And when we do, and when we have that vulnerable moment, we still do our best to try and blockade our ego, to save it. For what? What has your ego ever gotten you? Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, and on Twitter he said, whoever said that money doesn't buy happiness was onto something. That man could buy so many islands, so many houses, so many arcade games. He could make an entire amusement park just for him, and he still won't be happy. Bill Gates couldn't be happy. He was not content enough with his life that he had to go to an island and deal with Russian prostitutes, maybe even darker. That's just what we know. And to hide his shame, he tried to slip his wife antibiotics just so he didn't have to explain it. It's like David and Uriel. That Bathsheba girl's pretty hot. She's over on the rooftop and she's bathing. Ooh, I'm the king. I can do what I want. Bring her over here. I'm going to lay her down. He does. What if Uriel finds out? No worries. Put that man on the front line and let's go start a campaign out there. Dies. Covered it up. We're good, girl. You're mine now. And God's like, okay. We'll see. I think a lot of us are on this. God's looking at us and saying, okay, we'll see. Do your best to not be that person. Do your best to walk away from that. And I mean that to all of you, because I care about all of you to an extent. And that's just because I know that pain. We all are feeling it. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, you know. In the quiet hours, when you're on the toilet and your phone died and you have nothing to look at and it smells like garbage in there because you're dumping your bowels out, there's a part of you that's thinking, what am I doing? Or when you're in the car by yourself and the radio's not working and you roll the windows down and all you're hearing is the rush of the wind and air hitting your car and it's coming in, your hair is waving around and you're just thinking to yourself, what am I doing? What is this all about? Y'all do it. I know you do it. Because if you can think long enough to do evil things, that means you've probably thought long enough to ask, am what I do is what I'm doing evil? And that's just reality. That's the hard truth. And Jesus has been trying to tell us the hard truth for 2 millennia. Since we began. The Word of God. Jesus is the Logos. He's been there since the beginning. You really think you're going to hide from him? We'll see. That's all I've got for you guys today, and I'm going to work really hard to make sure that this actually gets saved. So before I actually do it, I want to make sure that we get this right. So I'll catch y'all later. God bless.